Hey guys, welcome to the Macros Bodybuilding and Powerlifting Podcast. I'm here with another episode with another fantastic guest who I hope many of you already know, which is Mike Matthews. So to just give you a small introduction about Mike, many of you probably have heard of Muscle for Life, or I hope you have. Fantastic website with some fantastic books and also a fantastic podcast. With many of the guests I've had on here have been over on Mike's at least once, maybe even several times. So Mike actually published Bigger, Leaner, Stronger in 2012, which is crazy. That's so many years ago, and it's grown massively since. And since then published 5 other books and sold over 100,000 copies, which is fantastic. So that's kind of a small insight about Mike, but I think a lot of people are interested to just get to know you a bit more, to know kind of Mike, who are you, what have you do, how did you get into the industry? So I don't know if you want to kind of just give a bit of background about where did you come from, what got you into the fitness industry, into writing, and kind of obviously we can delve into the evidence-based background that you got into. And that's why I really like your work, is because you do reference the literature and you really do put the work in, and you don't just kind of give out random recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So to start from the top, just for the sake of, because I've been talking a bit more about numbers and stuff, on the whole, I've sold close to 1 million books in the
Wow.
last since. So like Bigger, Leaner, Stronger is now over 200,000, probably closer. I have to get last year's numbers, but probably closer to 300,000 alone. So everything's, gone very well in that regard. But for me, it started with Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. Actually, that was the first thing, and it was kind of like a nights and weekends type of project. It was something that I kind of just did on a lark because I had gone through my own personal transformation. When I first got into weightlifting, I didn't know what I was doing. And I knew that I didn't know what I was doing. It was something I just kind of did. Like I played a lot of hockey growing up, so I wanted to continue doing something when I was done with hockey. So I just chose weightlifting. Also at the time, I wanted to be more attractive to girls, and girls like muscles. So I was like, I'll just go do that, right? So I just like grabbed magazines and did random shit. So for the first 6 or 7 years, it was a lot of magazines, and it was a lot of working with various trainers and gyms. And again, it wasn't something that I really was approaching. It was more something I was just kind of doing because I just enjoyed working out. So it was more, I would call it exercise than training,
Hmm.
because again, I hadn't really educated myself, and it was something, again, I do with my friends, and it kind of replaced sports for me. Where it's not like, I got pretty good at hockey, but it's not like I sat down and studied hockey. I just played a lot of hockey. Though I decided to take it a bit more seriously. By the way, you can hear me fine, right? I got
Yeah,
some.
it just went funny for a second. It's fine.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So eventually I decided to actually educate myself, and I won't, I don't want to take up too much of your time with all of the details, but basically, long story short, I went from, thinking, not really even knowing what goes into fat loss. I thought, I didn't really think, I guess to my credit, I didn't think I had it figured out. I just knew that I had heard a bunch of things, and here and there I'd try little things like, sure, I'll do some cardio, you know what I mean? And
Hmm.
yeah, maybe I'd notice a little bit of fat loss, but nothing much. And just by doing, I don't know, I'd just like run for 30 minutes, 4 or 5 days a week without really changing my diet. So of course there's a bit of fat loss there, and tried a little bit of like clean eating and so forth. But again, I didn't really have a clear goal in mind of what I wanted to do with my body. I was just kind of doing it because I like to do it,
Hmm.
and wasn't too concerned with the results, honestly. But then eventually that changed, and I decided to take it a bit more seriously in that regard, and see like, what can I really do with my physique? How far can I really go?
Hmm.
I also had thought previously that the look that I've been able to achieve required steroids. Or I guess I assumed that. Again,
Yeah.
I didn't have any strong beliefs one way or another, but I kind of just had that assumption because, again, that's just like a common thing that, steroids are big, of course, in bodybuilding, and that a lot of people in the gym are on steroids, and it's kind of natural to think, oh, well, if you see some dude that's like big and lean and strong, probably on steroids. So eventually I educated myself and learned, really, that's something that I guess I've always been good at. I was a good student, growing up, and in my previous life, I was creating employee training materials for various companies, very random, but we kind of niched in on healthcare professionals in particular. But that actually served me well in my new endeavors because I had a lot of experience getting into industries and getting into jobs and things that I didn't know anything about, and I had to quickly get myself up to speed, and I had to produce training materials that would allow companies to, hire new people and bring them from me not knowing shit in the beginning to like being able to do the job and not just know things, but do the job, get results. That's very different than a purely academic, pursuit of can you spit out facts or can you feel enlightened? Like, no, you have to get results. So I kind of brought that, I guess, experience to bear on health and fitness and just did it the way that I normally do it, which I mean, these are things that I'm actually going to be expounding on more in a book that I'm working on now, which is going to be a bit more than just health and fitness. It's going to be a kind of a lifestyle book. I want it to be kind of like a manifesto of sorts for this tribe that has kind of coalesced around me, and health and fitness is a part of it. But I think that it's going to be a self-development, self-help type of book. I mean, I don't like the connotations that come with self-help, but I have some pretty unique ideas that I think are going to set it apart from everything else in the space, which is what I tried to do with Bigger, Leaner, Stronger initially, and did well with it. So I'm going to be diving into, like, for example, I think one of the key components of successful, or I would say achieving success or satisfaction or fulfillment in just life in general, or any area of life in general, is being able to educate yourself effectively, self-education. So I think I have some good insights and some good tools to share with people that allows you to, I wouldn't say shortcut the process, but to learn to get into something, to start in a confusion and being like, I don't know what's up, what's down, I have no idea, I have no compass, to I can't say quickly because it really kind of depends, but I guess it would feel maybe to people that have struggled with that in the past, it would feel like they can much faster getting up to speed. Anyways, I kind of applied myself in that way to health and fitness, and found really what I found most helpful. There were a handful of authors, and like reading. Everyone should read Starting Strength, for example. Mm-hmm. And if you really want to take it further, I would say Practical Programming is also a required read for on the training side of things. On the diet side, at the time, there actually wasn't anything that great. And now I like Alan Aragon's book if you want to just learn about dieting. I mean, my stuff is good too, I would say, but if I'm going to promote other people's stuff. But at the time, what I found most helpful was scientific literature. And particularly reviews and meta-analyses were a great place to start because they're more conversational, and they tend to be less jargon heavy, and they require less technical knowledge to be able to follow along. And of course, they link out to a bunch of other stuff. So you can start with one and end up with 50 hours of profitable reading. And so that's what I found most helpful, especially on the dietary side. The training side, it's tough if you're just going to stick to the literature because it's all over the place, honestly. And I think you have to, it helps to establish a solid understanding, like Schoenfeld's stuff is good for this, for example, of muscle hypertrophy. And so you understand the mechanics, and then when you do start looking into the literature, it's going to help you initially discard stuff that you can kind of just write off as either just flawed or mysterious, and it kind of helps you stick to stick on a path that's actually going to help you get better results and not just confuse the shit out of you, and where you have no idea now, should you do high reps, should you do low reps, should you be training once a week, every muscle group once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever. So I kind of went through that process, and I just applied the things to my own body and saw great results. And then other people were asking that I knew, right? They just saw the change and were like, what are you doing? And so I was just kind of sharing with them, here are the key takeaways. Like, it wasn't even I was training people, so to speak, but not in a professional capacity. It was just like friends and whatever. They would come to the
Yeah.
gym and I would just give them a crash course on diet. You know what I mean? And it would be very much just like, all right, cool. So first is energy balance. This is how it works. This is why calories in, calories out matters. Okay, good. Now let's talk about macronutrients. Here's why protein matters, carbs and fats. Here's a good way to balance that out. How much do you weigh? How many hours a week do you exercise about? Okay, cool. Why don't we just start here, do that? Here's how to make a meal plan. Just go do it. And it was very much just like
Yeah.
off the hip, like, or from the hip, just off the cuff. And on the training side of things, again, it's very crash course. You know what I mean? Like it was almost just, okay, what we're going to do is, because most of the people that initially they'd never done any heavy barbell training. So it was kind of just like, here's what you need to know. You have a few exercises here. Your number one goal is over the next year, I want you to gain as much strength as possible on those exercises. We're going to do some other stuff as well. And yes, we do want to progress on those exercises. But first and foremost, we need to get your squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press into a respectable range and see what we're even working with in terms of physique. And so along the way, people that knew me knew that I also was interested in writing, and which I kind of found randomly. I've always enjoyed studying. So, I mean, that's how it first came to me, was like when I was younger and I didn't know what did I want to do. I knew that I couldn't see myself climbing the corporate ladder and going down that, career path, mainly because it didn't appeal to me. And I feel just my personality, I was more drawn to wanting to do my own thing. I mean, also, my dad is a successful entrepreneur. He's built and sold companies and so forth. So I saw it firsthand, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be playing I don't want to be like navigating through the bureaucracy of, corporate culture and where advancement is maybe more based on politics than actual merit and so forth. Not that that's the way it always is, but when I was like 17 years old, it was that I had a limited worldview, and so that's kind of why I decided against going down that road. And so it was kind of just like in looking at myself, my personality, my inclinations, what maybe I have, where are my talents or whatever. I was just like, well, I'm pretty good at learning things, so maybe I would be a good writer, basically. That was at like maybe 18 or something like that. And I wrote a novel. That was my first thing.
Wow.
I just jumped into it. Right. And I never published it. I look back at it now. I mean, maybe the premise maybe has something, but it's not. I've subsequently studied a lot about storytelling and fiction writing in particular, and it would need to be completely regutted and revamped. But, so that was my initial interest, and I got my feet with writing and found I actually really enjoyed it. I like I guess it's the creative expression, and in terms of Maslow's pyramid, it's the self-actualization. I feel like you can tap into a bit of that with artistic expression in a way that, whether it be writing, or I know people. I've never played an instrument, but I hear that a lot from musicians as well. There's like something magical or whatever about being able to play that Bach piece perfectly or whatever. So I was like, I could see myself doing this. And eventually that then turned into creating training and stuff, because I had to I didn't want to go down the starving artist path especially if I was going to try to just make it writing novels. Although I'll say that, like, I actually think I could have done that successfully, and I still can. It's something that I will probably pursue in the future. At the time, there was an opportunity to get more into something that is just business related, so I did that. And so I did a lot of that, and again enjoyed, even though it was a totally different. Obviously, there's not, in that case, it's very much about clarity and not the poetry of it, or the how flowery your prose is or anything. So I did that for a bit, and then heard about Kindle's KDP platform, which is their self-publishing platform.
Mm-hmm.
It was getting traction in the media because there's a guy named John Locke who was like the first self-published author on KDP to sell 1 million copies and of his books. And his story is pretty cool. He built a couple insurance businesses. He built one, sold it, did it again, sold it for the second one for, I don't know, $30 million or something. So he was done making money, and I think he was in his 40s at the time. So he was like, "What do I want to do?" And he decided he wanted to write, and he priced his books at 99 cents, which was novel at the time,
Mm-hmm.
because he just didn't care. He wasn't trying to make money. He was just trying to see if anybody would even give a shit about his books. So when I heard that, I was like, I'll write a book on. I'm going to write the book, the health and fitness, or like the fitness book that I wish somebody would have given me back when I was 18, and I would have gotten to where I am with my physique. I would have been there at like 22 or 23 or something, instead of, I mean, for the past year and a half or so, I've been kind of maintaining. So I would say, probably 29 or so. I'm 32 now. So at 29 or 30, I'd say is kind of where I got to where I was pretty happy with everything. But it didn't have to take that long. So that's what I did. So, and at first I was looking around, has someone written this book? And it didn't exist. So I thought that was a good opportunity. And it's also just in business, it's always a good sign if you're scratching your own itch, if you are a part of your target market, not only from a marketing perspective, because then you understand who you're writing to and you understand what the real pain points are and what the real aspirations are and so forth. But it also is just a good sign that, you're probably not the only person that feels that way, as opposed to trying to write or just market to a group that you're not a part of and you have no understanding of. So I wrote that book, and again, kind of on a nights and weekends type of thing. And I approached it in a minimum viable product kind of approach, where it was maybe 60,000 words, and I did put time into it, and I put some thought also into the marketing side of things, the title and so forth, and just put it out there, and maybe like 20 people downloaded it in the first month. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And then it was like maybe, I don't know, 40 the next month, and which I also thought was cool. And then I started getting emails, because I put my email address in there. I was basically telling people like, hey, if you like this, let me know. Or if you have any questions, let me know, right? And so I started getting some emails, people asking questions and saying they liked the book. And started to pick up and kind of grew exponentially from there. So I wrote a couple other short books to try different ideas to see, can I do another one like this, or can I beat this, or is this going to be, did I just stumble onto the capstone right away? You know what I mean? So by the end of the year, it was selling a few thousand copies a month, and Bigger, Leaner, Stronger was. And I believe I had also published the first edition of my cookbook in 2012 as well, but I don't remember. I'd have to actually look. That might have been 2013. I don't remember. Anyways, so by the end of 2012, though, I was looking at where everything had gotten to, and ironically, I actually didn't really want to become a health and fitness guru guy or anything like that. I was happy that people liked, the stuff I had put out and that it was helping people, but I was more interested just myself in creating a publishing company and just applying what I had learned, with selling my own books to selling other people's books, and not just health and fitness stuff, but, it would be looking at the business model. Like, you want to find an area, ideally, at least to start, where you really know you can produce good stuff. So the idea was probably to start there, because I'd have a good, internal sense of, is this book really fulfilling a need, and is it well executed or not? Whereas if I were to start with, a thriller, for example, I don't read thrillers, so it might be hard. I might think, hey, this is not bad, but a hardened thriller reader might say this book sucks. Like, why is this even published? So that's what I wanted to do initially. And I recruited a friend of mine to work with me on it, and we got going on it, came up with a name for the company, and started putting together a website. But then in that time, which was over the course of a couple months to really get everything together, where we were getting to where we could launch, it just became more obvious that becoming the fitness person is probably a better opportunity, and it's something that I can change my mind about. Like, it's not that I was so adverse to it that, it'd be torture. It's just, I don't, I have more of an interest this is also why I've written so much stuff. I prefer to spend most of my time researching and writing versus the areas of this industry that I neglect or avoid. I don't care about modeling. I don't care about, getting a huge social media following. I mean, it would help maybe to some degree in business, so I'm interested in it for that reason. But I'm not really interested in in fame in any
Yeah.
sense, really, honestly. So we kind of pivoted and we shifted from the publishing company to just focusing on fitness. So that's where Muscle for Life comes into the picture. We started building it. It launched in March of 2013, and I just used it. I mean, it's a blog. Even now, it's still a glorified blog, although it's going to get a full overhaul this year. It's going to be really nice, the new MFL. I'm really excited for it, actually, and it's really going to come into its own because right now it's been kind of, I would say, wallowing in the shadows of in the muddy shadows of Legion, the supplement company, which has gotten really the bulk of our marketing efforts and money and everything. So we're going to be shifting. I mean, not away from Legion per se, because there's still a lot more that I've also expanded the team. So now like Legion can keep on doing its thing, but Jeremy and I in particular are going to really be focusing in on Muscle for Life later this year.
Cool.
So Muscle for Life came about 2013 and it grew very quickly. And I've published more books ever since then, and launched Legion, which is a supplement company. And, I have an app that is it's out, but it's kind of like in a soft launch, under the radar stealth mode type of, because there's some bugs and shit that need to be fixed before I really want to push the throttle. So that's the long story, not so short, but
no, it's fantastic to hear just the insight of how you came from kind of ground zero and built up to where you are today and where you're expanding and looking to go to, because I think a lot of people can probably relate to the fact that you started out kind of seeing results but not really knowing what you're doing and not kind of necessarily caring. But then I think a lot of people, especially people listening to this podcast, did start out with people like Alan Aragon, Mark Ripito. I think they probably, and I thought your kind of statement of I was exercising and not training, I was like, that sounds like a Mark Ripito quote.
Yeah.
And these are great people to start with and then build from. So I can see why you've got such a good grounding base of knowledge just from kind of starting with those guys and then going into the research from there. So that's really, really interesting. I guess for me, an interesting part was, how did you get into initially kind of the writing? Obviously you released the book in 2012. What was the kind of transition to being able to do that book and then actually sell it and make it grow? What lessons did you learn? How did you get it? Because the sales have exploded. I mean, it's crazy. It's fantastic and you're doing incredibly well, but to have only had kind of a small number of downloads, obviously it just kept multiplying. How did you keep that going? How did you get that fire kind of burning?
I mean, to be honest, there wasn't any secret. I just published it, and a lot of it just, I mean, it just took care of itself in terms of word of mouth. But there's a lesson there, and this is something that I get asked fairly frequently, and I'm happy to answer. Even people that technically want to compete with me in the space, I'm totally fine with that. Fitness is not a zero-sum game. It's not like if someone buys your book, they're not going to buy my book, mm-hmm. and I would even prefer to have more stuff out there if it's good stuff. But I would say first and foremost, I mean, there are a few things. One, the number one thing that sells books is word of mouth, which means you have to write a book that's good enough for people to talk about it. And people that are really into books are also generally, I've found, they know other people that read books and they talk about it. And it's just a point of discussion. What book are you reading? Or, hey, I just read this book and I really liked it, blah, blah, blah. And also just in my experience emailing with literally tens of thousands of people now, readers and followers, I feel like I have a very high caliber following, and that I rarely get any sort of negativity at all, which is actually, it's nice. I mean, I feel like I have a fairly thick skin. I mean, I grew up on the internet after all. But it is nice that I don't have to deal with much. I mean, sometimes people leave shitty comments on articles here and there, but considering how many, I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of articles and I get tons and tons of comments and tons of emails. It's very, very, there's just not much. And mm-hmm. part of that maybe is just how I've gone about things and been very open and genuine, and you put a lot of time into building real relationships with people, and people notice that. But I think it's also just there's something to be said for book readers are. I just think that they are a special class of people that read books regularly. And that's not an elitist thing, or that's not me being arrogant. That's just me stating an observation based on, a lot of anecdotal experience, a lot of data in that sense. Um, so so that's the thing, is if you can write a book that someone's going to go, this is really, really good, that's your number one goal above anything else marketing related, above the cover, above the title, above the sales copy, above however you're going to launch it. Above all, it needs to actually deliver. And I can cite quite a few examples. I know now even some behind the scenes information on how much money certain people got paid, advances on books that had huge marketing efforts behind them, and it went very, very poorly. Where you had a big spike and then it's just disappeared, dead, gone, because the book itself sucked. You know what I mean? It just wasn't a book that you're really going to talk about. So that's for anyone considering writing a book in this space or any other space. It has to be something it's not work you can just kind of phone in. You can't just go through the motions and put words down on a page, and once you finally get to that magic number of words, you can then just publish it. It requires a lot more, I would say, if you want to do it right, a lot more diligence and a lot more thought before you even start the book. Which kind of brings me to the next point, which is at the time when I wrote Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, again, there was no book that I knew of that I could find that delivered on what I wanted it to deliver on. So that's why I wrote it. I saw that there was a genuine gap in the marketplace. There was I felt there was a need for it. And this is, I felt this would have helped me if someone could just break it down and make it simple and just tell me, here are the real basics and fundamentals, and not try to sell me on all the sizzle and not overpromise or, rely on hyperbole or, just like Tim Ferriss-esque 4-Hour Body type of bullshit. And and tell me it's going to be hard work, but it is straightforward. It is pretty simple. You just have to put in the work. But if you put in the work and, you put it in the right places, you're gonna if you put it in the 20% that's going to give you the 80%, that's kind of the goal. So in that sense, it's working hard, but it's also working smart. So at the time, there was a genuine need. It filled, again, I saw there was a deficiency in the marketplace. And since then, I've seen a lot of people come along with Me Too type of books where they try to give it their own spin, but in the end, it really is just flexible dieting, progressive overload, compound lifts, maybe some motivational stuff, you know what I mean? And that's fine, but if writing a Me Too book or in any industry, if you're just creating a Me Too product, you have to ask how is this going to beat, who kind of wears this crown right now? And again, if you're looking at where do 80% of the sales go in this space, it's going to be if you're looking at books, it's going to be a few authors, like any space really, right? And so, if we're talking about my stuff, it would be me, Mark Ripito, maybe Tom Venuto, and I don't know if I'm maybe one other person. It probably accounts for the majority of, if we're looking at Amazon sales. Yeah. I mean, I know with sales ranks and so forth. So if you want to write a book that is similar to Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, you have to go, all right, so I have to beat now, like you have these three guys, and between me and Mark Ripito, I'd say, if we're talking about not health and fitness on the whole, because then you have a bunch of other types of books like, running books and all that shit. But if we're niching it down into bodybuilding per se, Arnold's book sells well, the encyclopedia. But so you go, okay, so how do I offer something as to a potential consumer who's coming into the space, and that person doesn't really understand how dieting is. They're frustrated because they've tried different things and they've been in the gym and they've put in all this work and they don't look the way they want to look. They don't understand. They can buy Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, which has like 3,000 reviews, 4.5 stars. Probably have heard maybe of me already. So there's like maybe they're already coming in with a good first impression. Maybe somebody told them, oh, you should check out this book, and that means something to them. Or they can buy your book from someone they've never heard of, which has maybe no reviews or very, very little. You have to look just from a consumer. You're gonna buy my book every time, and you may never get around to buying anything else. So for somebody that is looking to break into this space as a writer or any space, this is where this work, on the front end comes in, which is you have to really identify a real need, like
Yeah.
something. You have to bring something unique to the space that people aren't just going to say. And I know, just 'cause I've seen reviews on other books that have been very much Me Too's, and heard from readers of mine and followers of mine, where it was just like, oh yeah, it was kind of lame. It was just basically like a spin on your book kind of thing. And that's a bad plan. Like, yeah, you can sell books, but for the amount of time that it really takes to write a good book, it's not worth it if you're pretty much guaranteed very little, if any, success. So that means that and I'm going through this process again. So this is going to be another test of my theories and my philosophies, for this book that I'm working on, this kind of self-help, self-development book, where I'm not just writing, what do I want to write about? What do I think would be interesting? I'm starting with a pretty deep analysis of the space and looking at what the best-selling books over the last 3 to 5 years, really like honing in on those books. In a lot of cases, I've actually read them, but looking over reviews, what are people not liking about these books? What are they liking? And again, I'm reading. I've already read quite a few of them, but I'm reading a few more just to again I want to like get steeped in it. That's something that I've found has really helped me when I'm again going about learning something, is fully immerse myself as much as I can. So because then I feel like your mind starts connecting dots that you don't even there's no shortcut to that, where you really start getting a 360 degree understanding of, you really then get your bearings in the space, and you have your orientation, and you can spot. That's where you can get these creative ideas. And I've come up with, I would say, I don't know, I'm probably like 2/3 of the way there in terms of what the elevator pitch on the book is going to be. Cool. And what's going to make it unique, but it's very deliberate. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I have ideas. Of course, the content has to be unique, and I think I'll be able to do a good job on that. But it would be a mistake for me to go into it just saying, "Hey, I have a following. I'll just write anything and they'll buy it." Yeah, that's true. But I want this to be, ideally, I would say my big goal, my stretch goal would be to sell 1 million copies of this book in the first year. Wow. So if I want to do that, I can't just write a book that's going to resonate with guys like you or other people that like me or like my stuff. Mm-hmm. It needs to resonate. It needs to resonate with people in the self-development space on the whole, or at least it needs to resonate with a large percentage of them, and something where then they're going to talk about it and so forth. So I need to replicate what happened with Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. It's just Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. That space is very small. Yeah. Relatively speaking. Like if that book would have been a fiction book, like if that book would have been any big genre of fiction, like a fantasy book or something like that, and if it would have had the magnitude of success, it probably would have sold 10 times the copies by now. That's how much bigger the the fiction space is, at least 10 times. I mean, it'd be looking at millions of copies sold of just one book. So the self-development space has a much bigger potential, but it's also much more competitive, and you need to be much more laser focused on, from a marketing perspective, why are you creating this? Who is this for? What problems are you solving? And how are you doing it in a way that hasn't already been done 100,000 times before?
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And I think the key thing I took away from that was I think there's a lot of copycats. I mean, within the fitness industry, I see it, and I've done it myself, where I might not have really thought about it. I've seen something by someone else. I thought it was good, so I've just tried to put my own twist on it. And in reality, I haven't thought about, is this new? Is this different? Is this going to help me grow? And when I think about kind of my own if I ever do publish or do any content now, I'm now thinking, how's this different to anyone else? Because I do look through my Instagram feed or my Facebook feed, and nothing, I mean, if it doesn't stand out, if it's not the same, I don't really pay any attention to it. So I think a point I really took away from yourself there was to actually have a think about what is out there already, and does what you're going to provide any additional value whatsoever.
Yeah. And there's something to be said. There's a difference there. Like marketing, swiping stuff from, other marketers is great. That's how a lot of marketing gets done, is, even whether it doesn't have to even necessarily be in this space. You might see something, you might see a headline for, some software as a service product that you go, that's a good headline, I can spin that. I mean, that's, of course, that's marketing. Mm-hmm. But when we're looking at it in a more meta kind of sense, when you're really trying to establish a foothold in the industry. Now we're looking more at branding and how are people perceiving you on the whole. And if everything you're doing is just Me Too kind of shit, unless it's like over the top, like Bradley Martin, just freak strength
Yeah.
feats of like superhumanness that one day he's just going to snap his spine in half kind of stuff. If yeah, sure, if you can do that, then you're an entertainer at that point. It's like a circus show. But and I guess you could say that on the writing side of, or on the YouTube side of things, if you could take, again, if you can be shocking, or if you can be very different in that regard, very funny, or if you have a personality that is that really can, if you're a good writer and you also have a charismatic, and you just have that X factor in terms of personality. Like I think of the guy, I think his name's Tim Urban. His website is Wait But Why.
Right.
Very good writer, and his stuff's just enjoyable to read. The way that he thinks about things is pretty unique, and I enjoy reading his stuff, and that very much hinges on. I mean, he just writes about whatever the fuck he wants to write about, but he does it so well. So if you can do that, but you have to also be objective about, can you do that?
Yeah.
And again, so if you're going to write content, what's the angle? Another good example of a unique angle is Greg Nuckols. So he's a guy that has come into and really carved out, and he's like, I don't know if anyone is going to be able to kind of tear him down from his throne that he's been building for himself, because he does such a good job. Not just I think he's a very good writer, but also I'd say he's, of course, where his real strengths are in his research and in his analysis and in his ability to break things down. And the only caveat is, and he probably knew this going in, is his stuff is not for laymen. It's not. If you send any of his articles to a more general fitness type of person, they're going to fall asleep in the first minute, because they're going to hit like 15 technical terms and have no fucking clue what he's talking about, and that's going to be the end of it, right? But I'm sure he knows that, and he knows the crowd that he's serving. He's serving people that are very well educated in this space, and fitness professionals and other scientists and so forth. So that's just another good example of he's doing something unique. Greg Nuckols could write a book that could do very well, because it's going to serve a very specific group of people, and it's going to serve them in a way that nobody else is currently, that I know of. Although that's not true. I guess Schoenfeld does, Aragon does to a degree, but I just think that I don't know. I'm actually having Greg on my podcast soon, so it'll be interesting. It'll be nice to talk to him and meet him and stuff. But I would just say that whether he did it himself or he worked with someone that has a really good marketing and business sense, he could write a book that could do as well as anything that I've produced. It would be a very different book. Yeah. It would probably be more directly competing with maybe Ripito, whose stuff is somewhere in between mine and Greg's, I feel. Ripto, obviously Mark knows a lot more than I know, but I just mean in terms of if reading it and understanding it, like it's a little bit tough for laymen, but they can get through it and at least walk away with enough practical understanding they can go get results. And I wouldn't say that that's completely not the case with Greg, but I just know from even sending people that email me, I've sent people over to his articles, and they have trouble. They'll like ask me, so. Like I tried to get it. I don't know if I got it though. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, it's definitely a case of knowing your audience and knowing how you can best serve them. I think that's really important, because I don't know. And for yourself, actually, you said it. You don't kind of try and spread yourself thin on every single platform. You pick and choose the ones that serve you best. And I think that's what a lot of upcoming fitness professionals struggle with. Is there's Snapchat, there's Instagram stories now, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, Twitter.
Where everything just becomes middling. It all just becomes mediocre. Sorry, you were to ask a question. I
was just going to say, how did you... Did they find you, or did you find the platforms and decide you wanted to use them? How did you go about kind of picking and choosing? Because obviously you're busy, so you can't be everywhere.
And so are you referring to social media in particular?
Yeah, social media, but if you want to expand on, if you've thought of something else that would be interesting, for sure, expand.
Yeah, I mean, so I've made obviously my primary platforms, my writing, so books, blogs. I have one, Muscle for Life. I have one over at Legion. Podcast, content creation. I'm also going to be doing. I'm going to get a proper setup here in the office, because I was doing these short videos for YouTube at my house, and the videos came out well, but it took too much time. It's too much of a pain in the ass to set up and get the audio right and it was actually just pissing me off. So I'm going to get a proper setup here in the office that's going to be just like ready to go. So then I can schedule like with one of the people that work with me, hey, Wednesday at 2, let's record some videos. And so they can just be like ready to go.
Perfect.
All I have to do is step in front of the camera, put on the mic and just go. And then it's a lot, well, at least I'll feel like I'm being, using my time better. So those have been my primary platforms. Social media, I'm on obviously the different networks and I use it mainly just to engage with people. I don't do a very good job in terms of posting frequency and in terms of social media on the whole, but I do a good job staying in touch with everybody. And I think that, at least that counts, that matters. That is, I think if we're in the end, the biggest value, if we're talking from a business perspective, is engaging with people. I think not just accumulating a lot of followers, because that doesn't, especially in my case, just having a big number of followers doesn't necessarily mean anything. And especially you see a lot of girls that, yeah, they can get a ton of followers because they look good and they're willing to just take slutty pictures. But how valuable is that from a business perspective? Like how many of those people would ever buy anything from that person? Debatable. And I know from Legion, from the business side of things, you might be surprised how little a girl with 1 million followers will get paid, especially now. I mean, that game has become very commoditized where if you're not willing to, maybe if someone's really good, let's say they have 1 million followers and it's a high quality following and they engage a lot, they spend time, I don't know, maybe they could get a couple $1,000s a month. But the amount of work that it takes to get there, that's a full-time job if you're going to really keep at it. And because if you don't, you're going to fall behind. And there are a lot of other girls that are coming up that'll take your place and, your sponsors will jump over there. So it's not necessarily an easy way to make money. So I haven't put much time into social media in the grand scheme of things. And that's been intentional because I don't really enjoy it for one. It's, I feel like it's kind of busy work, or at least in the scheme of things, I feel like the opportunity cost is too high in that my time is better spent, I think, writing a new article or working on a new book than trying to plan out, a bunch of interesting social media posts. And because, I did a podcast recently with Nick Cheadle, and he was talking about just kind of like how he built his business on social media. And one of the things he was talking about, which was a good point, is that a lot of people don't realize how much work actually goes in behind the scenes to produce what you see. It's not just, oh, that's right, we have to take a picture here. Done. You know what I mean? Not at all. There's planning, and then there's like repetition of getting over and over. Yeah, you have to. You might have to get 50 pictures to get the one that looks just right, and that's just the way it is. Yeah. And there's also usually a lot of photoshopping and post edit and editing and whatever. So all that just doesn't interest me. So I've kind of avoided it. But I do have a girl, Corey, who works with me. She handles all of Legion's social media, and she does a good job. And we're going to be getting another person to work with her, and then she's also going to work with me a bit. So again, if I can just delegate some of the, ground, some of the what feels like grunt work to like get things planned out and make sure we're on a schedule, then I think it makes sense for me to put time into participating into it. But again, my focus has been creating things. I just don't think there's that much value. Like how much value are really giving to someone if you just kind of take pictures of yourself and your life and your shit, look at my money, look at how cool my life is. I mean, I don't know how many loyal fans or followers that's really going to get you, as opposed to like if you can write a book that changes someone's life, yeah, I'll take that.
No, I think that's a really good perspective to have because and when you said busy work, it definitely feels a bit like busy work for myself if I do like an Instagram post or a Facebook post. And I always try and give some value, like you said, but it's either to try and drag them to a blog post or something that's going to give them more because you can only give a tiny amount away in a short segment like that.
Yeah, but you have a caption. I mean, it's hard to.
Yeah. And I think actually I'm reading a book called The One Thing right now, which is it's been out for ages, but it reminded me of what's really going to take your business up a level? Is it going to be these little Instagram posts every day, or is it going to be an hour of writing a book that could change people's lives, like you're saying? So
I highly recommend that book. That's a book that I actually did a little short video on. I'm gonna once I have my setup, I'm gonna do that as well, because I've read a lot of books and I continue to read a lot, and it's something that I was doing like a little monthly post, like books of the month and stuff. And so I'm probably gonna bring that back. I have to just see time wise. I'd like to bring it back, and maybe I'll just talk about one instead of like, I'll read maybe, depending on how big the books are, 2 to 4 books a month. And so I'd kind of have a summary and key takeaways from each. And while I liked it, it was taking a bit more time than I would want to put into it. But maybe I'll just pick like, here was my favorite book of the month. And then so maybe I can just bang that out in 30 minutes or something and talk about it. This is what I liked about it. I already do all my takeaways. I have them all in Google Docs anyway, so that's easy to throw together. And then I like the idea, again, of creating some short videos, just because I get asked for book recommendations a lot. So I figure, I have a lot of book readers in my crowd, and I myself I like to read, so I like to talk about books. So I think there's a good overlap there. So that's a book that I did a video on, and I highly recommend.
No, yeah, I think books are, you're probably better off reading some of these books than doing some of your social media posts, to be quite frank, I guess. You're probably going to get some better takeaways. So I just wanted to move on to kind of a question that you've probably talked and gone on to some of these, kind of touched on these elements already, but if you have any kind of key lessons or experiences whilst being kind of self-employed and online, what you found kind of your biggest struggles, how long did it take you to like get round them? Maybe you found a routine eventually that worked for your time management, kind of reflecting on where you began, because I know kind of when I started out online, it was just a bit, I didn't really know where to begin. It was just like, oh, what do I do now?
Yeah, totally. It's I guess I'd have to look at that, because we've kind of it's come from nothing to a lot of books sold to Legion's going to do 8 figures in revenue this year. Muscle for Life is a 7-figure business. So I feel like it has gone in stages, and I feel like businesses very much go that way, in that, what gets you from 0 to $1 million a year in revenue isn't necessarily what's going to get you from, I would say, anywhere from 1 to 5 or maybe 1 to 10. And then what gets you to $10 million in revenue is not going to get you to 20, 25 is probably the next big hurdle, and so forth. So, in the beginning, it was very much about, there's that one thing concept, right? So I decided in the beginning, writing was going to be my one thing.
Cool.
Like that's what I was going to focus in on, to the exclusion of pretty much everything else. I don't remember when I even set up my social media accounts, but it wasn't in the beginning. Like I had written a book and published it, and that's it. And I remember I had one like shitty selfie picture of me that I put in the book, right, as like, here's me, right? So people even remember, like, those some of the reviews. They're like, yeah, there's one picture. We don't even know if this guy's real. so that's also, then what did I do then? I had some more pictures, but then I think that's when I started put together a website so people can see. And then, I eventually got on YouTube, and then it was like, oh, okay, I guess that really is him. But so that was in the beginning, really finding what product or service was I going to produce that other people, would find valuable enough to give me money for, and then just do a lot of that. So in the beginning, it was a lot of writing, and I would say if there's the production, like what are you creating that people are going to exchange with you, for, mm-hmm. But then there's the marketing and business side of things as well. So I'd say that has to be part of your one thing. To some degree. Unless you can create content that's so stellar that you're just, destined to succeed, whether it be writing or audio or video or whatever. And that, unless you're like, put it in a sports analogy, unless you're one of those dudes that, mm-hmm. From 5 years old, like the first time you stepped on the ice rink or the soccer field, you were the best. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it's always been. You know what I mean? Those are the people that end up going pro. Literally their entire lives, they've always just been the best at that sport. They dominated high school, they dominated college, they dominated everything, and then they made it. So it's kind of like, unless you have that just crazy level of talent, mm-hmm. Going into it, you're gonna have to also become a proficient business person and a proficient marketer. And that means, a lot of study and a lot of reflecting on, and not just and I say study, not just reading and like passively, consuming information, but actively, you have to be engaged while you
Yeah.
study. So, I highlight when I read and I make marginally, I read digitally, so it's notes that I save in it, but,
Hmm.
and that helps with, actively absorbing information
Yeah.
and turning it into something that you can use. So in the beginning, there's really, drill down into you want to get good at, I would say, I mean, again, this could be a whole discussion in of itself because if you go, okay, I want to get good at business or I want to get good at marketing, where do I start? I mean, I have recommendations on where to start for education and so forth. But so there's that, and then there's focusing in on your production. So if we were to say you were allot some of your time to education, a few hours a day maybe, and then you allot the rest of your time to your one thing. So
Yeah.
whatever that is, and it doesn't have to be content. I mean, a content based business is great if you can create content, as I was saying, that can stand out in the space and be unique and be special and be talked about. But if you can't do that or you don't want to do that, then you have to create a product or a service that is so unique or so special that it's talked about. So,
Hmm.
for example, this app. That's why it's not at that point yet.
Yeah.
But in a few months, definitely by the end of the year, the app is going to be a special enough product that it's not going to be propped up just by my book sales or my article traffic. It's going to be something where people, will talk about it in its own right and be like, this app is fucking awesome. And
Hmm.
here's why. You know what I mean? So, somebody could come into that space without any of the following that if I came into the app space, no following, no content, no platform, nothing, and built that app, that also would eventually turn into something.
Yeah.
People would talk about it. So again, that one thing though is that what is it? It can't just be like, oh, I'll just do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and the idea that just doing something is enough because it's not. And so that's in the beginning. And the beginning, fuck work-life balance. It's work. That's it. Like work is actually as much as you physically and mentally can. Push yourself to the point where maybe you feel like you're gonna have a mental breakdown, and that's when you have to stop and maybe take a break. And some people never change in that way, and I myself actually is something that I would say I'm maybe inclined to be like that, but it's
Yeah.
not feasible. I mean, I have a family, and
Hmm.
I don't want to be so much of a workaholic in that sense. I mean, I'm not into like usually when people try to use that label, like I've had people say that to me, like, oh, you're just kind of a workaholic, right? But that's just because they're just mad, like you know what
Yeah.
I mean. That's not them actually trying to have a real discussion. It's them trying to just dismiss
Justify
me.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to justify their own
Yeah.
failures, right? Just dismiss me as that I have some sort of mental illness, and that's why. And oh yeah, sure, money, whatever, but blah blah blah. But no, because that was very much the beginning phase was just work and cut out everything else essentially besides working out and spending some time with my wife. I didn't have a kid at the time. Now I do, and I have another one on the way. And so really like no hanging out with friends. And I think that's something I'm particularly good at, just being a hermit. So some people may not have been able to be as much of a hermit,
Yeah.
and I understand, but you have to push yourself very far outside of your comfort zone in terms of how much work you can do. And again, that's a whole discussion in unto itself.
Yeah.
Of it's not just about putting in long hours, but it's also about really getting a lot done with that time. And that's something that I feel like I have done a good job
Hmm.
with. And it's not just me; I have a team of people now, and we've been accumulating people along the way. But if I look at my personal contribution, I feel like I've done a good job producing a disproportionately large amount of things given the time that I've put in, even though that time is at this point quite voluminous.
Hmm.
So that's the first phase is, you have to really, that's the hardest phase. I mean, because I mean, I guess if you think about it objectively, but then there's the subjective experience because for me, it didn't feel so hard because things were working. So that was
Yeah.
exciting. And so, it was, yeah, you put in the work, but you got results. It's similar to the gym. Yeah. I mean, deadlifting is hard. Sure. No one's going to dispute that. But when you are, progressing on it and you're seeing changes in your physique, and then you look forward to, something that you might otherwise never think that you would ever even do.
Hmm.
So that's the first phase. And again, I mean, this could be a whole podcast unto itself, but so I would say the next big transition is learning to go from a worker to a delegator, to an executive, to
Got you.
someone to bring in people to work with you because you can only do so much yourself. And it also it's always nicer to have people to work with, even from a motivational perspective.
Definitely, yeah.
I would say I'm also, for whatever reason, a pretty I don't know. I don't generally have problems with motivation. I generally I'm a very goal oriented person, and so I know where I'm going. I know why I'm going there, and then it's just a matter of doing it. And then I get into a routine, establish habits, and just kind of stick to it, almost like a meal plan, but
Yeah.
like a life plan. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's just that's how I approach. I mean, sure, when I was younger, I didn't have any direction yet in my life, and so I know, like, my wife's from Germany, and I used to go to Europe and used to go around and have fun, and I never felt like I should be doing anything else. I would go spend 3 weeks in Paris and be like, yeah, this is great. Like, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? I don't feel bad. I don't feel like I should be producing anything or doing anything. I feel like I want to go to Montmartre and hang out. So I know what that's like. But then once though I've decided, okay, this is I've now changing my goal from just enjoying myself to like doing something.
Yeah.
My psychology completely changes, which maybe is something again that is maybe a strength of mine, but I do think anyone can kind of cultivate that. So, but so when in the beginning you're doing everything yourself, and then you have to get people with you, and I've found that to be helpful, especially now. It's been a number of years, and a lot of stuff has been done, and I would say, I may or may not be working as hard as I do now if it were just me. I don't know. It's hard to say. You know what I mean? I know my personality, but I may also, I have a son. Maybe I would be like, I mean, I spend time with him, but maybe I would be more inclined to just kind of work less and do things with him, or find hobbies or something, or whatever. Right. But there's I guess there's quite a bit that could be said, and what I think maybe makes for good leadership, or good being a good executive. But one of the key things is definitely being able to delegate work. So you have to be willing to give people things and not be obsessively micromanaging everything yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to become good at managing other people and getting other people motivated and getting everyone on the right, on the same path. And so, again, I think that breaks down into more than just those two phases. But I think broadly speaking, those are just, if you don't ever make it out of doing it all myself, then it's only going to go so far, and you're going to end up stressed and overworked and demotivated.
No, I think the linking it to the gym was a really good example, because you think of the guys who are the biggest. They're generally the guys who have been putting in the hardest work for the longest period of time. And unless you're a genetic elite or you've got a special skill in business, then you're going to have to do that as well. And there's no really getting around it. And I think that's coming apparent with like Gary Vee talking about grind and all of these different things. So it's really good to hear it from yourself, and I've heard you talk about it on your own podcast, how you are a bit of a workaholic, for lack of a better term right now.
Yeah.
You enjoy working, and it's something that you want to do. And I mean, people often will probably try and find, like anything in life, they try and find shortcuts, they try and find secrets, but there's no two ways about it. You've got to put in a lot of work. But the good thing,
that's like one of those just ironic things that, if you hear, it could be a podcast like this, and it could be some big CEO of some big company, and maybe he's asked about what's his one bit of advice for people if they want to be successful like you, and maybe he says something like, "You just got to find your passion," something where people go, "Yeah, that's an acceptable answer. That's politically correct." You know what I mean? That's like right now, So, but what he's not telling you is really, okay, how does this guy really live? Like, you really want to know how this guy lives. He works 60 to 70 hours a week. He doesn't watch any TV. He wakes up at 5 a.m. every day. He's literally always thinking about work. Actually always. No matter what he's doing, from the second he wakes up to the second he falls asleep, he's thinking about work. You know what I mean? Like that, people don't really want to hear that. They just want to hear that if you just kind of, have this master key of some kind, then everything just falls in place. Yeah. Like, No, you have to consciously be putting everything in place and keeping everything in place, because if you don't, if you let up at all, like puzzle pieces start flying all over the place, and that's
Hmm.
just the reality. And something that I don't remember where I picked this up. It might have been a hard thing about hard things. I don't remember, but somewhere along the way, somebody said that if you want more tranquility, do less. And I totally agree with that. Where
Hmm.
like if you're going to get into something and you say, "What's my goal?" Like my goal for Legion is $100 million a year in revenue. That's the size of company. Now, it's not just the reason why I tie it to finances is because I know what that means in terms of size of company.
Yeah.
It's harder to quantify if I say a number of people helped, and that's one of the big things that makes Legion unique is that we don't just sell people stuff. Like we take a lot of time with people on the phone, over email, really helping them, answering all of their questions,
Hmm.
in addition to producing some pretty unique products. So when I look at it in terms of like what's the big goal, what's the game, so I can say that, but I need to also then go, am I willing? Like that doesn't just come, and it doesn't come like I'm not just going to cruise 40 hours a week and do whatever I feel like doing and have some fun
Yeah.
and wake up one day with $100 million a year company. It's going to be a pain in the fucking
Yeah.
ass. And am I okay with that? You know what I mean? Am I so? I think that's I've just had this discussion with people, so it just comes to mind where I've asked people like, really, how much do you value comfort and calmness and ease? And if they say like very highly, then I recommend then do as little as you can. Really, honestly, I mean, if that's the thing, I mean, I would urge people to not be like that and to look at things differently. But I've just known, I have friends and people I know that got into different careers that are actually very difficult and very competitive with a very rosy outlook on things. You know what I mean? I feel like
Hmm.
if they would have just looked at it going in, they either would have maybe made it, been more successful by now, or they would have decided against it, and they would have, if they would have really looked at themselves and say, am I willing to go through fucking hell to get there?
Yeah.
And for extended periods of time and get up every day and do shit I don't want to do and push through it anyway and learn to like not even care about my feelings anymore and my emotions, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and be able to turn that side of me off. Who cares what I want to do? This is what I need to do. So anyways, kind of just rambling,
No,
but
it's really really interesting. Only because I'm just starting my bodybuilding contest prep, and that sounded just like the dark stages in prep, where you
yeah,
basically you go through stuff you don't want to go through, but if you don't commit to it, you're not going to get that stage conditioning. We have a lot of bodybuilders who listen to the podcast, so a lot of them can probably relate just to what you're saying. And it's business, but you can relate it to so many different aspects in life. And I don't want to keep you too much longer. If we've already been talking an hour, it's been fantastic. We haven't even been able to touch upon kind of your physique progressions and everything like that. But I hope that everyone listening has got a lot of value away from that, and also taken away that they need to go and check out Muscle for Life if they haven't. Go check out the website. Go check out your Legion products, because fantastic that there is someone in this space who has such a big following, who is pushing kind of the right stuff, for the lack of a kind of a better way of saying it. But it's good information, it's good products, and the fact that you're going out there and you're trying to be ambitious and do all these things, I'm so grateful for it, because we need people like yourself, Matthew, to do that. So thank you so much.
absolutely. Well, I'm flattered. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And I'm going to put in all links to everything below in the description, so you guys can check out that. And thank you so much, Matthew, for coming on. And I kind of wish you all the best in future.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Cheers for listening, guys. Take care.